Hey all, Scott here, and today we are taking a look at U3, The Final Enemy, Part 2, which is the adventure section of this module by Turnbull, and my thoughts and notes on how I would approach this particular adventure. Again, I'm going to reiterate the fact that I don't like this adventure. I don't like the way it's set up. I think it is a trap to put players into. And I don't particularly like the way that everything has gone into it, or how you're supposed to get out of it, or how it's just designed in general. I think it's got a fantastic dungeon when you're talking about how it was designed. But really, what you're looking when you get into this particular dungeon are well, there's a level. The first level doesn't have a lot in it, except for basically a setup to give the characters equipment and magic items that will help them get through the two lower levels, which are both submerged in seawater. And, that seems like a little bit of a gimme. And then when you get to those other levels, you're either going to go up against officers or lieutenants in certain situations, or you're going to run into barracks or an arena. And the barracks have 20 plus Sahagin in each one of them. If you run into one of those, you're done. If you run into the arena, which is going to have 60 or so Sahagin, you're done. And the inability of you to use your, for a magic user, to use spells because you're submerged, and negatives from being in water unless you're implementing the Ring of Free Action that you can find here, or the Helm of Underwater Action that you might have found in previous adventures. It's going to be very, very difficult. If you want to kind of fudge those things, one of the things that I thought about when I looked at it is you could have the lizard men that go with you. They could have a shaman, somebody like Egg Shen in Big Trouble in Little China. And he could give you a potion that makes you feel things and do things that nobody else could do. And therefore, you could get rid of all the negatives of being in the water. And you could also, as a DM, then break the party up. Have the lizard men go and investigate certain sections, like their job is to look at the barracks or find the barracks within this area. And therefore, they kind of deal with that sneaking around, and you don't have to deal with those things. And then you can specifically go through and target the higher-ups, the Baron, the officers, and so forth and so on, and have those fights and get some good magic items. But again, my thought process in this is, if you're eliminating the Baron, the officers, and any of the spellcasters, anything like that, why doesn't this all just kind of fall apart afterwards, and the assault isn't really necessary because you've gone in and kind of cleared it? So there are two ways of this. I mean, you're either clearing this adventure and therefore you don't need the assault, which you're there for, that you're there to scout for, or you're not doing any of that, and then you get back and Saltmarsh hates you and they lose all these people going there, blah, 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 blah. I just don't like the way it's set up. I mean, you can think of ways to try to get around that a little bit, like I've just told you about using the lizard men in that way. I mean, you go into the first level, you're going to meet a former party member who's been in here for a while, named Elmo. And he doesn't want to be tickled. He is just a prisoner who is almost dead, and he was a wizard or a magic user, 5th level, who can tell you specifics about the dungeon level that he knows, and therefore gives you. And his real purpose is just to tell you where a secret door is that'll give you magic items that you're going to need to go on the rest of the adventure. There's also a Triton that you can get involved with on. I think he's in the 3rd level of a prison cell. That's kind of cool, but I don't know really where it gets you. And then again, you're moving through an adventure where you're underwater for the bulk of it, and dealing with complete darkness and cold. There are some cool kelp beds, which I kind of like, but again, it's problematic for the characters because all of the Sahagin will be in them. You can't see, get through them to really get the numbers that you're talking about. And all of a sudden you can get into a barracks room where you're taking out the kelp beds, and then 20 of these things are on you. You can't throw a fireball, obviously, to get them out of there, clear these rooms. So it makes it really, really difficult. You also get into the problems of, your retreat, moving through the marshlands and so forth, which I went into part 1. Nevertheless, I don't have a lot to say about this. Other than it's going to be very, very difficult, and you're playing a game of cat and mouse between the DM and the players. I never think that's a good thing to do. The players are going to do what they're going to do, and you know your players, and they're probably going to die here unless you're giving them way too many bonuses and kind of just spoon feeding them the adventure. That's not adventure. So I don't know exactly how you correct that. But again, I'm not a firm believer in this adventure unless you just go through and you do an entirely different rewrite, or you say you can make something else that happens along the way where a lot of the Sahagin are drawn out. You could do that. Say that maybe the Triton that you can find in the 3rd level was a precursor to more of them, and they are currently, attacked the area or scouted it too heavily, and most of the Sahagin cleared the barracks and are now on patrols, or they saw your ship that come in and they also have gone after that. So you clear the fortress of a lot of the just hit points that are going to be in it, because there are a lot of hit points in there. So that said, I'm not going to go into any further real detail on this, except there's a lot of magic for characters at 3rd to 5th level. There's going to be a lot of treasure, and you're not going to be able to carry it all. That's going to be another pain in the butt for characters, because you're going to have to leave a lot of it behind. You're going to be picking and choosing, and I know people don't like to do that. And you would also have to come into the effects of trying to determine encumbrance within water, which would be incredibly difficult and a pain in the butt for the DM. So, I don't know. Anyway, I'm not a huge fan of U3. I love this series. I think the first 2 are a great setup, but I don't like the end game, unfortunately. So if you are looking to run this module, please go through it and try to cherry pick out what you really want the characters to do, because they're going 3 levels deep into a fortress where they're just supposed to be scouting to find specifics that are very, very difficult to determine. And then if they go back without those specifics, they kind of get dumped on by the council at Saltmarsh. So it's a pain. And I'm not sure exactly how you would want to fix it. It can be fixed, but again, it's going to be a lot of work. So keep that in mind. I'm sorry I don't have a lot of joy to bring you in this one. But again, I think it can be done. It's just going to put a lot of effort on your part. And otherwise, that's all I have to say about U3. Be careful if you're doing it. Use the free actions and the helm. And there's one really cool piece on the back of it by Keith Parkinson that I'll show you. No, actually, it's by Dave DeLue, and I'll show you that one. That's a great little piece, and I think that actually shows the Helm of Underwater Action that the fighter has on it. And there are some sharks in it, too, so you can deal with sharks in this adventure if you like that. Nevertheless, that's it. U3, my primer, my DM notes on how to deal with the problems inherent to this module. I hope I've given you some thought on it before you go through. Please read the back before you read the front. And again, thank you for watching this today. Please subscribe to the channel, as we could use all our subscribers, and hit notifications. And I will see you tomorrow with a brand new adventure. Thanks.